It's Kimberly here with Knit for Brains. Welcome to my Where in the World is Kimberly chat as we knit and or crochet. So if you haven't been following our channel, we the Brit and I, are currently in the Midlands of England, and we are on a narrowboat. We've hired a narrowboat, aka rented, for 2 weeks. So we are into our second week of our narrowboat excursion, and it has been an absolute blast. It's been so much fun. It's very, very relaxing. I'll show you some video here in a little bit. But we've also been learning just a lot about the people and the culture. And if you've been to England or even to, I don't know, any other countries and really just go to the big cities, I don't know that you can really say that you've been to the country. Like when we travel, I like to go to the small places. I want to go to the markets. I want to see people as they're getting ready for their day. I like to see them in the open markets. You know, like, how do they live their lives and how is it different than what we're doing? And so we've really gotten a great opportunity to get to know a different part of the country that a lot of people don't see here in England, and that's the canal life and the canals. Because, you know, you're sort of off the beaten path a little bit. And so we're not in the center of town. Some, believe it or not, actually, a lot of the canals are somewhat in the center of town, but you still have to get up out of the canal to the main roads. And so we have successfully learned to navigate the canal life. So for those of you that have ever done canal life, maybe you know a little bit about it. We are in the Warwickshire ring, which from the Americans, if you see it, it looks like it's pronounced Warwickshire, but you don't pronounce the second W, and you kind of meld the end, so it would be Warwickshire Canal. Look at that gorgeous bridge behind me. Ugh. So I thought I would give you a little bit of history while I am knitting. I am currently, I've got knitting and crochet, but I'm working on my Musselburgh hat, which I'm loving. It's a knitted project, and it is one continuous loop. So I finished the first half, as you can see, and I'm working on the second half here, and then I'm going to start decreasing, so it's going to be one big huge tube. And this is going to kind of roll into each other, so it can be a hat that's a slouch with this color, a hat that's a slouch this color because this would move inside, or you can do it as a hat with a brim. It's got 4 uses, and it's the perfect project to do, just, you know, tootling down the canals. So the other day we had the opportunity we were staying in a little marina canal town called Braunston, and we found out that they were having this the 21st annual Narrowboat Canal rally was taking place that weekend, and we were there on Thursday. And so it was happening basically Saturday and Sunday. So all we had to do was figure out something to do on Friday, stay in the area, and then come back on Saturday, which we were very excited to do, I especially. So we decided to spend a little bit more time in this area. We moored up in a town called Rugby, which I mentioned in my previous video. I'm a huge rugby fan, huge. It is the only sport that I follow. So we did that, and then we went to this narrowboat rally, which was the 21st annual, and it was commemorating the canals, the waterways of England. So I thought I'd give you a little history as to the waterway, the canals, the history of the narrowboats and the canals in England. So they started in the late 1700s, early 1800s. So it was about a 50-year span. And the canals were originally developed to bring goods, specifically coal and wood, but mostly coal resources, through the country, because this was before the railway. And once the railway came along, it was much more efficient, obviously, than doing the canals. And so the canals kind of went into disrepair. So they're in the process of trying to bring them back to life, and there's a huge movement towards saving the canals and saving the waterways. But during this time frame, so it was the late 1700s, early 1800s, they would have these, and the canals were shallow, and narrow, which is why they call them narrow boats or canal boats. And they're flat bottom, which is what we're traveling on. You can't see from here, but along the side of the canals, and it's actually to this side over here, is what they call a towpath. So it's now a walking path for cyclists or runners. Sometimes you'll see someone along the side there. But when it was in use, what they would do is they would tether the boat to a horse, a small horse, a stocky small horse, who would walk along the side of the path over here, and they would tow the boat. And so that was when you get your horsepower. If you've ever heard, you know, like this boat has 20 horsepower, whatever. Back in the day, it was 1 horsepower, and it was literally the power of the horse that would tow it along the canals. And that's how the boats moved from town to town. And they would pick up coal or steel, but I think it was mostly coal, and wood also. And then they would carry it to the next town. Either they would do it for a large company, like a coal company, or they would also, you would have your independent merchants, if you will, who owned a canal boat, and they would bring their wares along. So that could be the firewood, or it could be coal or whatever, and then they would move it along the canals. They would bring it into what they call a market town. Rugby happened to be a market town, and they would sell it there. Anyways, and so oftentimes, here's where the history comes in, and a little bit of crochet history. The wives would travel along with their husbands on the canal. So while the men were steering the boats, maneuvering the boats, the women would be on board, and they would either be crocheting and or knitting, and then they would sell their wares in the market village. And it could be, so that's kind of a lot of where like a lot of the crochet came from, and a lot of the knitting as well. Well, there was something that I learned yesterday, and you'll see here in a minute, called cabin lace. And the cabin lace, what they would do is they would make lace curtains for the canal boats. They would go across the top here or down along the sides of the boats, you know, for privacy or privacy. Sorry, being married to a Brit, it's changed my my grammar a little bit. Anyways, so they would do this, what they call canal lace. Canal lace is a form of filet crochet, and I've talked about this on the channel. And so canal lace is a form of filet crochet. And filet crochet was started back in, I think, the 1500s by these nuns in France, and it was also what they call tatting lace. I mean, it was like even thinner than a 1. And what they would do is they would use these little tatting hooks, I guess, and they would make lace, and the nuns would make them, and they would make tapestries of the Last Supper, table linens, lace, that kind of a thing. And so these women would learn this filet crochet. These women would learn this filet crochet, and they would pass it down through generations. So the woman that was teaching me yesterday, which you'll see here in the video, learned it from her grandmother, who learned it from hers, so it was passed down, how to make this filet crochet, or what they call cabin lace. Cabin, to make lace curtains for the canal boats. This is probably not something I'm going to be getting into anytime soon, but it was really interesting to learn. So let me show you what I did. See, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
So she knits, he steers, and what do I get to do?
This is what women would do. Yeah, women would sit here and they would do this, and then they would make this filet crochet, and then they would sell it when they get into port to make some money or to decorate their boat. So I'm doing exactly what I should be doing, is what I find.
You sure?
Okay.
Maybe.
I see that. I thought I did something wrong. I've actually done something right. Gotcha. Okay, so that's that, and then I'm going into this one. Yes, and then I'm doing a block all the way across. Yeah. All right. So 3.
So turning.
Do I need to do one more? Where's the other one? Sorry. Oh, I need to do one right there. Right You know what I found with the British? Anytime that there's something going on that's not fun, you drink tea. Yes, I would imagine there's a lot of tea that's going to be drunk when you're doing something like this. So as you can see, it is quite a tedious process, but let me show you. After all of that training, I ended up making, she gave me a little bit of extra string so I could finish it, bless her. And I've tied it to itself here, so hold on. Here we go. So this is what I made. This is going to be a curtain. So it starts out here, and then the pattern, it's going to continue on, and then it's going to do these increases and decreases down here. So it's going to make like a little curtain that goes across, like so. I did that. I did that with a very, very, very small hook and a little teeny tiny bit of crochet thread. I'll probably finish it with this little bit of yarn, and that's about it. But I ended up buying because I had to. So I found this. So this is basically what they would make. And this is all crochet. I mean, look at how dainty this is. It was hard to just pick out one. But what they would do with something like this, I mean, you'd have seen these as doilies. But the ladies, the women back in the day, would attach like a wire hoop through this. And then it would almost be like a mandala, right? And they would stretch it, and then they would have it as a decoration in their window shade. So they would use that as their decorations. And so I bought this, and I'm gonna either use this as a doily at home, or I might even try to hang it in my window in my craft room. Isn't it beautiful? What I find is that England is a land of craftspeople, of trade, and this is one of those things that you learn about when you're in a country where you're just, you're finding people and how they live. And this to me is so rich in history, and it's so beautiful. I'm just loving this, and it's so peaceful and so quiet, as you guys have said. Like, how do you do this? So let me talk to you a little bit about the life. People lived on these canals. They lived on the boats. That's what they did, and they would just go from village to village, and they would sell their wares. A lot of people in retirement live on boats, or maybe they own it, similar to what we have an RV life in the States, and they'll live on it for 6 months at a time, or maybe a month here, a month there. You can rent a canal boat like we did, or you can live on it full time, which we're seeing a lot here. You can see some video here. So people that live on it, they're in these there's marinas all around, all up and down, where you can go. People are like, well, how do you wash your clothes? I've seen people with clotheslines on the top of their canal boats, and they're not always moving. Oftentimes they're moored up like these guys here, and then that's just kind of like where they stay. And if they need to go and get provisions, you just, tootle on down the road to a Tesco's. There's a lot of grocery stores up along the way. There's pubs right along the water sides if you want to go and have a bite, or meet the neighbors, whatever it is. So there's lots of things and places that you can go. There's people coming up here who are just bought some provisions you'll be able to see. So there's marinas up and down the canals, and in the marinas you can go in there, you can stock up on provisions, water, eggs, bread, groceries. We had a Tesco we popped into. The refrigerator is rather small, so you only want to get maybe like 2 to 3 days worth of provisions. But I've made dinner. I'm in charge of dinners and lunches. The boys do their own breakfast. But in the marinas, you have what they call laundrettes, which we would know is a laundromat place. You can wash your clothes. And you can hang them out to dry if you choose, or you can, I'm sure there's going to be dryers. We have fresh water on the boat, and they have pumps along the way where you just basically moor up, and then we have a hose that we just fill up so we have a water tank that we have on boat that we use for our shower. So we have a tank of fresh water that we have here on the boat that we use for our showers, washing up dishes. We have a septic system. We have 2 bathrooms on here. Baby ducklings. Oh no, Mama's over there. Do you hear them? There they are. See them in the water? But Mama's over on this side. They're a little nervous because they can't see Mama, but they'll find her. They're just calling for them. That's good. I love this life. So every couple days we moor up, we get some water. We can also go and empty our pump, what they call pump out, which is empty out the septic system. That has to be done. And we can also refuel if we need to. We have enough fuel for 2 weeks. Our septic system is supposed to be able to last for 2 weeks. But then you just pull over to the side and you can wash your clothes, get water, get your supplies, get your sundries, and whatever. And so it's pretty self-sustainable, and the beds are really nice and comfortable. So there are people that live on the boats full time. This is what they do. You find, all different lives. Some people have gardens on the roofs of their boats and things like that. It's a very interesting lifestyle. It's it's somewhat bohemian. Obviously, it's not for every person. The tradition of crafts and making your wares and then selling your wares on in the market towns is still very, very much alive. And I didn't really understand it fully, but now that I've been on the boat for 2 weeks, and then we went to this rally, this Narrowboat festival, if you will, then I really came to understand it. So again, during the 1700s and the 1800s, when they needed fresh water, I told you we have a pump here, they would have these big water buckets, pitchers, if you will, tin pitchers that they would use for fresh water to wash nappies, diapers, to brush teeth, wash face, that kind of stuff. That was the only fresh water they had, because you really don't want to be drinking or using the canal water. And these were just painted, and they were beautiful. They were painted in like these really bright colors, painted on the enamel, and it's just really part of the heritage and the history that we find with these narrowboats that I have absolutely in love with. That I've absolutely fell in love with. And so when I knew we were having this narrowboat festival, this woman I met said, if you want to get some beautiful painted enamel, you'll be able to find it at this festival. And I found this woman who has been a enamel painter. She's actually a woodworker, but she's been doing this, and she learned it from her grandmother and so on and so forth. So she is a authentic artisan tradesperson. But it looks sort of like this, real whimsical, beautiful painting. And then, I don't know, it had this cute little button inside of it, this little pin. Interesting. I was really more interested in the box, but the pin is very cute. So I got this. So these are the historic narrowboats, and you can see all the different colors, and you see where it has the roses, or it's got these pictures here. This is what I was referring to, and they're these beautiful bright colored pictures all over it. And a lot of these boats are painted with kind of a gesture, harlequin kind of design on the outsides, and then they have scenes on the doors, on the panels inside here of like castles, just beautiful. And I just fall in love with the artwork, and then I just love all this, and of course all the artisan work. And so these pictures would be painted, and they were sold in the villages. So I ended up getting a antique sherry cask that this woman found, so it would hold sherry, and then she restored it. It's wood with it's gorgeous. The sides, and then it's got the lands, the city, the scape of a little castle. It's got all the things, and it's beautiful. So that is coming home. So I'm going to show you here just some of the other pictures and things that I found, along with some of the narrows. So sadly, this is probably going to be my last video to you from the boat, because we're going to be dropping it off, and then we still got 3 weeks in front of us, so it's not going to be the last time you're going to see me. This might be the last time you see me on the boat. Britt and I are going to peel off from my brother-in-law, who has to go back to work, and we are going to be going down to the southern coast of England, down to Cornwall and Devon. One of my very favorite places in the entire world is the Devon coast, Cornwall. There's a little village down there we're going to be spending 2 nights in, called Port Isaac. Then we're going to be spending a little bit more time around the coast. We're actually going to be starting our trip down there in Bath, and then heading down south and coming up around. So you'll be seeing some more of us. and some more of my favorite parts of the English countryside. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed this little sidestep from Kimberly with Knit for Brains from my channel, but we're still talking about knitting, we're still talking about crocheting, and I thought it'd be a nice way to integrate our travels into this channel. Thanks so much for watching. This is Kimberly with Knit for Brains, and as always, I'll see you soon.